the north of yes.
Hi. We're going to do a work session and walk through steps one at a time. So come on back. Come on back. We've already started videotaping to the other cities that are watching us, so I want to get started. If you could, please, it will be faster if you do this. If you can make sure that you're in groups by languages, it'll be quicker. And if you want to further separate so that you're with someone who teaches about your same level, that might be quicker. First, tell me who was in my Spanish class yesterday? Two of you, come on. Most of you were in my Spanish class yesterday. Who was in my Spanish class yesterday? Okay, so I want to go back and show you what I did. It's over here. This is how I started. We started with TPRS. Agarra, llora, mira, and corre. So TPR, total physical response to begin with. And then went to TPRS. This is the structures, words that you need to do with a little bit more structure. And then we ended up with this reading. That was about 90 minutes worth of a lesson plan. So that was day 1, day 2, right? That's about what you would do at a very beginning class. So what backward planning is you figure out where you want them to end up, and then you backward plan from that till you get to the very beginning and how would I start. So what you need in front of you so that I can show you how to backward plan from this one is first the piece of paper that has the cuento del gato at the top in Spanish and in English at the bottom. It looks like this. And I know Jason has all the extra copies if we need more. Is anyone missing them?
Yeah, we need more.
Great. So Jason's right over there. Will you just show this to him and say, I need the rest of these? All right, but make sure if they're sitting on his table, they look like that. All right, here's the next one. Okay, so el cuento del gato. Here you go. El cuento del gato. They're coming. El cuento del gato. Look at that. Tell me what I did on the first day. Pull out the TPR words from the first day. Do you see it? You can work in English because you can do this story in Mandarin or in French. That's why it's in English. All right? What are the TPR words? Agarra. Thank you for the rest. Agarra. And mira. Tira. Did I teach it already? So here's your next day's TPR. All right, what else? Le da is a TPRS word. I already did it. What other words do I need before I can move on? Llora I did yesterday. Say it again. Recoge is a TPR word. I'm going to add that to my next list of TPR words. So on the back of this paper, what I'd like you to do is make your lesson plan. And how I do, we're still playing. How I do my lesson plan is I backward plan so that I have my TPR words, my TPRS words. And my TPRS words are two different ways. I do them two different ways. One is in stories and one is in PQA, personalized question and answer. So for example, muchacho and muchacha, I could do them by bringing people up and pointing to them and say, this is a girl, this is a boy. Or I can also do the PQA where I say, who is the girl who likes to dance? Who is the girl who? And I can put all of those, I rotate that into questions. So did you all see PQA? You should have seen PQA in both of these last two sessions. Personalized question and answer. Personalized question and answer is asking students questions, but then circling that. We're still working on basic skills of getting vocabulary, making sure they get a lot of repetitions on vocabulary, regardless of what level we're teaching. And what I'm going to do is we're going to start with this backward plan so that you can see from the very beginning how you would do a level 1 class. And then we're going to take the exact same skills and we're going to apply them to a high-level story in Spanish and a song in Mandarin. So the high-level story in Spanish is I do two. I do Hombre Pequeñito, the poem by Alfonsina Storni. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
And I do Espuma y Nada Más. It's a story from Latin America about a guy who goes to the barber, and he's the criminal. He's the person who's killed everyone in the resistance in that country. And the barber has the opportunity to slit his throat. He's got the razor in his hand, and he has to decide, am I going to end this revolution right now by killing the bad guy who is the person who's in authority, which will certainly make him die, or am I going to just give him a shave and let him go? And so you're able to talk about really high-level political issues and historical issues, and vocabulary is very advanced, and also break it back down to what are the words you have to teach through TPR, what are the words you can teach through storytelling and PQA, so that by the time you get to your story, it's completely comprehensible. We're going to talk about, it's called Espuma y Nada Más. I'll show you the document and how we teach it. Because if your goal is to make sure that everything is 100% comprehensible, you can't start with your hard stuff. You have to back it down. All right? So we're going to go step by step through practicing on this first one. All right, so the first story, second day, third day. What are we going to do next? You have it in front of you in English. On the back, I want these categories: TPR, TPRS / personalized question and answer, cognates. Cognates are words that you can see that you don't really need to teach, you just need to make sure they get in there. What cognates do you see that are Spanish to English?
So we have
TPR, TPRS, and PQA. I teach them the same way. They're words that can't be taught through TPR, they're structures. And then our third category is cognates. Pick out the words that sound like English. Mandarin, you have some. Ham bao bao. I use ham bao bao a lot. Chocolate, pizza. You're going to use cognates more than you normally would because you're trying to make sure that as much of the sentence as possible in Chinese is comprehensible. So if you are giving something to someone and your word is give, your next word is not going to be an unfamiliar word. It's going to be chocolate, iPhone, pizza, ham bao bao. Yes? Do you all hear ham bao bao? I think ham bao bao is really easier than hamburguesa, but here's where the Chinese completely confuses me. Doesn't bao bao mean baby?
It's different.
Oh yeah, of course. It's completely different bao bao, not bao bao bao, because the ham bao bao would be like a hamburger baby, and that would be wrong. All right, what else? What else do you see in that on your list that doesn't fall into any of those categories? TPR, TPRS. If you don't speak Spanish, I wrote it in English, and you will not do it in English, you'll do it in the language you teach. All right, so if you teach French, you're going to take this story and say, Coqui a un chat. Coquis est un bon fille, okay? That's your story. You're pulling out the words and you're putting them on the back. You have 4 categories, that's all. TPR, TPRS, you're going to have a line down the middle. If you want to fold it so your paper's even and you have like that. TPR, your TPRS words or your PQA words, your cognates, and then this last category is, it didn't fit into any of those categories. So this is my end goal in this lesson. That's my story. Did I get there yesterday? Look at that story. Did I get there? I didn't get there. I didn't get there because I hadn't taught all of the words yet. So I need to teach all of the words before I can get there. So at your table, you should be in language groups. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to sort the words. TPR, storytelling, PQA, it's structures, cognates, and then anything that doesn't fit into those categories. One of the ones that I'm not sure about is está contenta. Which category does that go into? Kind of. Está contenta maybe ought to be in the TPRS because it's a structure. And then I'm going to, at some point, be talking about contenta versus contento, and yeah. So I put them in both. make sure I get a little fewer, more repetitions on a second intention than I normally would. Because for most people, it's understood. When you're talking about people who don't have English as a second, as another language to fall back on, not so much. Yes, let me stop you and answer that question. When to use TPR and when to use TPRS? TPR is action words. Something that doesn't require translation. An object, table, something you can touch, something you can see. Jason gave you the example yesterday of believe. If you can't make it completely comprehensible without translation, then that's a storytelling word. It's a structure. It's a non-TPR word.
Okay, so TPR.
This should be quick to sort.
Okay, so in here you want the verbs that apply to
Anything that doesn't fall in here is probably going to be in there. Peaceful. No? Is peaceful a TPR word? Yes, floor is a TPR word. You can see the floor, you can throw things on the floor, you can stand on the floor. Tiene is TPRS. Has is a word that you can't just give a gesture for, you need a lot of repetition. Tiene, has. TPR, objects, actions, things that don't require translation because they're completely obvious. Believes doesn't fall into that category. Hace cara mala. Hace cara mala, you can gesture, but watch. What does it mean? Would you know? Would you know what it meant? So it becomes a structure. And hace is a little bit difficult in Spanish anyway. It's not a real common expression in Spanish, but it fits into, well, you'll see why we're going to do it. You might have better luck in a bigger group. You'll have more people to bounce things off of. If you feel like you don't know what's going on, you'll be much. It is. It is a TPR word. The weird thing about this story is I would never mix muchacha and chica in the same story. There's no reason. So normally I wouldn't, but this isn't my story, and it's important I keep it exactly the same. You'll see why.
So yes, it is.
Chica? In any other circumstance, I would never teach muchacha and chica at the same time. There is no reason to do that. To teach chica later, do muchacha early. But for this particular story, I can't change it even a little bit. I'll show you why. Okay, stop please. Let's come to consensus. The TPR words are, shout them out in English. Are you ready? In English, shout them out. TPR words in this lesson are gato, runs, cat, run, picks up, what else? Looks, kiss,
Cry.
cries, floor,
Happy. Contenta.
Contenta is a cognate.
Oh,
Está
you put it as a
contenta is a structure. It goes under TPRS. Okay, what else? Give is goes under TPRS. You need more repetition of gives because in Spanish it's le da. And then you can talk about se lo da, no se lo da. It becomes a more complex structure and you want more repetition. That is all. You don't need a grammar explanation. You just know you need to hear it more often. In Mandarin, if that is not the case, it may still be a TPR word. When you say give in Mandarin, if you just say give and it doesn't matter who you're giving it to, then it's still a TPR word. Okay? What else? Anything else? Is that all of them? Where does boy fall? Is boy TPR or TPRS? Boy is TPR. Girl is TPR. TPR. It's I point to you, you're a boy. I point to her, she's a girl. Completely comprehensible. Okay, what else? Here's a complex one. What's hace cara mala? Makes a bad face. This, you make a bad face. Is that completely comprehensible or could it be something else? It could be something else. So, is it a TPR word or TPRS word?
TPRS.
However, what's cara? What's face? I would teach face out of context from that structure as a TPR word. Look at my face, look at his face, and use it as a TPR word. It's a body part. You can just teach it. What else? The more you can teach for TPR, the faster you can teach. TPR is much more efficient. TPRS requires more repetition, so when you get to it, that's when you're in storytelling. Llora, good, cries. Recoges picks up. All right, here, what about the words that are structured? You're going to need more repetition. Which ones are you going to put into storytelling and make sure that they hear all of them 75 times, 100 times? How many times do you think you heard those words yesterday? Who was in that class? How many times do you think you heard those words?
Mira.
Mira. How many times do you think you heard it yesterday? 100 times. How about llora? How many times? If you didn't see it, or you want to see it, or you want to go back and count, it's on the Fluency Fast Facebook page. We recorded it. You can go back and watch it, and that's the beginning of how this lesson is taught. Okay, so TPR storytelling. Where do you put tiene, has? TPRS. Where do you put hace cara mala, makes a bad face, makes an angry face? TPRS. Where do you put lo tira? Throws it. So in Spanish, you want to get more repetition on lo tira, even though you taught tira as a TPR word. In Mandarin, when you're teaching throws it, what's the it? Is that complex? Is that easy?
The object.
It's easy. Okay. TPRS, I would put the lo in there just so I could say I would intentionally say she throws the cat. She throws it. Although I didn't teach cat. What did I teach instead of cat yesterday? Chocolate. I taught chocolate because it's a cognate and because I don't want to tell the same story over and over and over and over and over again and then get to the main story and have it be exactly the same. I want all the stories to be just a little bit different so that it's still interesting to them, so it's still compelling. Okay, le da un beso.
TPRS.
TPRS. Why?
Because le.
Because of the le. Because when you're doing le da, you can say da and gives and they'll get it. But when you say se lo da, no se lo dio, se lo tiro, you're into structures and it's not even that it's more complicated because everything becomes pretty easy, but it's that they need to hear it more. Because of the grammar, the grammatical construct in there, I can't just say it and know that they'll pick it up the way that they would llora. So I try to make sure that they get more repetition. So it's more of my intention than anything else. Okay, how about ya no?
PPRS.
Not anymore. She doesn't cry anymore. Can you gesture? Not anymore.
No.
It's one of those structures that students don't really pick up, right? We don't really pick up anymore. They don't say anymore early. So anything that your students have never picked up that you think, well, yeah, it's not natural, it's late acquired, it's probably because you aren't using it. If you start using those structures and getting them lots of repetition in your class, they're going to pick it up, regardless of how difficult it is. I would want to hear ham bao bao and bao bao more, so that I don't accidentally eat my baby. Okay.
So that's PPRS, the
Ya no, not anymore. Okay, anything else? Where do we decide to put is happy? So in Spanish, contenta is a cognate, but está contenta, I always think it's a cognate, and then it's a little, they just need a little more repetition than I would think that they do, so I kind of put it in between. I make sure that it gets in the story and they get some repetition, but I don't teach contenta, I just write it up and see contenta, content, it's happy. Help them identify the cognate. Yes? Say that? No. Está by itself I would never teach. Yesterday, do you remember when is came up in the story? Stacy, es especial. You remember me teaching is or just Stacy special? You remember Stacy and special, right? Do you remember that there was a word in the middle? It wasn't on my list. It wasn't a vocabulary word that I taught. They just get picked up. So we get really hung up on that in Spanish, is an S and está, but the truth is it's acquired if it's taught in a structure. So if you always say está contenta, they're never going to say es contenta. Okay? Do you have everything sorted? Did you find any cognates? Contenta. Anything else? And yeah, it doesn't matter. It's one of those little words. All right, so now in my cognate list, I'm going to add more cognates because I don't want to give away my story. I want it to be a surprise at the end. If you say throws the cat on the floor, because that's what's going to happen in my story, throws the cat on the floor, you can see that that's what's coming. I want throws the cat on the floor to show up for the very first time in the punchline of the story. I don't want them to see it before this. This is just my lesson plan, all right? So we need cognates, so you can throw other things on the floor. Is anyone going to react if you throw chocolate on the floor? All right, chocolate, right? It works. But what if you throw a hamburger on the floor? Is that funny? You don't get the reaction that you do from cats. You only want that reaction just the one time. Does that make sense? That we're trying to make sure that it's kind of a surprise at the end. We're not trying to redo the exact same story over and over and over again. All right, so chocolate. What's another cognate? Mandarin.
Are we talking about this one?
Pizza. I write them in there so I have extra words. So I'm not actually adding any extra vocabulary. I'm just adding extra cognates, words that aren't going to be hard. What else? Mandarin or Spanish or French. A cognate that will substitute for something here like cat. Hamburger. That's hamburger. Okay? Extra cognates, things that we can use that won't make us tell the exact same story over and over and over again. Say that again? Radio, radio, okay? Teléfono, sweater. Not tons of them, just a few. The girl grabs the boy's sweater and throws it on the ground. Telephone, teléfono. And in Mandarin, Linda Lee, our Mandarin teacher, uses iPhone instead of telephone. It must not be a cognate. Right, but is telephone a cognate? That's why she says iPhone. So you can replace things with product names. And the reason is because we want them to acquire the structures in the very beginning. Remember, from here, we're talking about very beginning, no background in Spanish. And then we're going to go to upper levels and reapply the same thing. Tell me what you do first. In this lesson, what do we do first?
R.
R. All right. TPR. I want you to stand up right where you are. The person at your table who is closest to me right now. The person who ran away the fastest right now. No, the person who's standing closest to me at your table right now, you're the teacher. Your class is a level 1 class. They have never heard the language before. You ready? Okay, all you have to do is teach them. Throw the chocolates. Throw the chocolate. Ready? However, you may not say any words at all that aren't already on that wall. All right? So you can teach in Chinese, and you can say throw, you can say, you can say grab, you can say cry, you can say look, you can say run. You can say any cognates, but you can't say any other words, all right? And you need to make them do it. TPR, total physical response. Get your class to move. Throw. You can throw fast. You can throw secretly. You can throw at the class. You can throw it in a circle. And you can only throw cognates. Okay? Whoever's standing closest to me, everybody else sit down. Okay, throw. Your students speak no Spanish, Mandarin. You have to act like beginners. When you don't know a word, what do you do? No, students, when you don't know a word, what do you do? Make sure they know.
Hoy vamos a aprender la palabra tirar. Repitan conmigo.
Tirar.
Tirar. Repite, por favor. ¿Cómo dijo ella?
Tirar.
¿Qué dijo
Tirar.
ella?
Tirar.
Ok. Ahora, ¿qué es tirar? No sabemos.
No sé.
Vas a tirar.
Okay, stop. Pause where you are. First you model, then you delay the modeling, which means you say tira, and then you go tira, and then you remove the modeling. So within about 10 seconds, I should see everyone's hands behind their backs. Go.
Okay, you say tira. Tira. Ahora tira. Tira.
然后像小学的时候，没有办法用TPR来表示他意识到一个背后写到
El estudiante no tira el agua. He would give a different answer. El estudiante no tira el agua.
That is a weird question in Spanish.
Okay. El maestro tira o Okay.
没有，这个是主词，本就是主词。对，然后接下来下一句就是刚才我跟他讨论，然后跟 Pero pues nadie te va a dar trabajo.
Maestro, tira o el papel o la mesa. Ok. Maestro, tira o el la mesa. Ok. El maestro tira o el papel, silla. Hacer. El maestro tira el estudiante o el agua. El estudiante tira el agua.
TPR, the basic rules of TPR. Are you saying the word, they do the action, they repeat, yes or no? Do they repeat, yes or no? No. They do not repeat. What we want, I need you to hear me on this because I want this to be what you say to everyone. What we want, it's really important. What we want is spontaneous output, not output beyond the level of acquisition. I'm going to say it again. We want spontaneous output, not output beyond the level of acquisition. That means what I've acquired, I can say and will want to say. But I, as the student, decide what that is. The teacher doesn't decide what I've acquired. If the teacher says, repeat after me, that is forced output beyond the level of acquisition. And all you're doing is working on pronunciation, not acquisition. If you talk and they repeat, you are speaking in the target language exactly half as much. Does that make sense? Think about the math. If I talk the whole time, they get 45 minutes of input. If I talk and they repeat, they get half as much. And it's forced output and it won't be retained. But do we want spontaneous output? I ask a question, someone says something funny because they've acquired it and they want to add something to the story? Absolutely. I'm not trying to prevent them from speaking, I'm just not forcing them to speak. There was a question.
Well, that brought up another question. My students want to repeat. So do I tell them not to?
Yes.
In that case,
Hold
I'm
on.
taking away their desire to speak.
Yes. Not taking away their desire. Hold on. Mandarin. Teachers who were in my Spanish class, what did I do when I said a word and you repeated after me? I asked you to be quiet. What else? Anything else? Just asked you to be quiet. Just do the, yes, only give me the output for the one word and just do the gesture. Just give me the sound effects. Just say the one word answer. That was it. How often did I have to repeat that? How often did I have to remind that class not to repeat after me? Every single new word. Every word you all tried to repeat after me. That we have that ingrained in us doesn't mean it works. Every time you ask yourself a question about what works and what doesn't work, go back to language acquisition does not depend on age. So if a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old would participate in that behavior, then it's probably natural. If not, it's probably learned over a long period of time. It doesn't do anything. We know from the research it doesn't do anything, but it does slow you down and it makes it so you can't get as much input in.
Let's play devil's advocate here for a second. As a parent, I mean, children do
Yeah, they only need one repetition of that one bad word you said when somebody cut you off in traffic, so they repeat it. So the acquisition part, the part that carries meaning, the part we acquire is what carries meaning. Repeating doesn't carry any meaning. we say something, they haven't really acquired it yet, they're not exactly sure what the word means and they say it, that's not actually meaningful communication. But it is meaningful communication when I got to the end of the story yesterday and I said, what does he do? What does she do? And someone said, llora. You had heard the word enough times you could see, that's where I was going with the story. It was the punchline of the story, it was the end of the story. Oh, and she cries. And I didn't say it, somebody shouted it out. That's spontaneous. That's, hey, I know where I want this story to go. That's what you want. You want that sort of desire to talk, but not desire to repeat. I'm going to move on to storytelling. So storytelling is the next part. To be able to start teaching vocabulary that is storytelling vocabulary, has a little bit more structure. You can do it just like TPR, but it needs more repetition. This is when we get into circling. We're going to ask a question. We're going to try and get our students to say yes and no, give us either or, and then at the end you can restate. Restating is no, he isn't happy, he makes an angry face, something to that effect. So what I'm going to have you do is hace cara mala, makes an angry face. You can do it through TPR just like you just did, but you're immediately going to go into asking questions about it, okay? Does that make sense? Not really. Want me to model it? Okay. It's better this way. Can you come up? I'll tell you what to say. All right, so we spent a lot of time learning Spanish, hearing Spanish, seeing Spanish. It's a lot of Spanish for people who don't speak Spanish, right? Right? So we're going to learn French.
I thought I was, okay.
Okay, so French, you're going to say, you're going to teach, it makes an angry face. Okay, so you're going to look at them, say it, and give them a gesture.
Il fait un regard noir.
Okay, so you're going to copy her but not say it. Okay, now repeat after her. How does that feel?
Like,
Can you feel that at that moment you're not doing anything, you're not accomplishing anything, you're just poorly pronouncing French, right? That's what they're doing. They're repeating, they're getting the feel of the word in their mouth, and what I'm asking you to do is delay that. Every time something is new, they're more likely to produce spontaneously words they've already acquired today than the word you just taught them. All right? Okay, so first she's going to teach it, you're going to do the gesture.
Okay, but they don't know. Makes a bad face. They don't need to know the bad face. Okay, so have to say it.
Il fait un regard noir. Does she need to translate this? Yes. And she needs to put it up on the board, and she needs to point to the word. Right? Okay, what does it mean? Makes a bad face. So I want you to point to the word, which is right here in the air. Actually, right there, okay? Makes a bad face. Is she pointing to the French or is she pointing to the English? She's pointing to the English. She wants to make sure you know what it means so you can associate that with what she's saying. Go ahead.
Il fait un regard noir.
Gesture. Okay? Now, who? Pick somebody. He makes it. I don't know, what does he make?
It's literally a black face. It's like a dirty look. A dirty look. Regard is a look. So
A dirty?
it doesn't translate literally.
It doesn't really work in Spanish either. The secret here is that I have no mic again. The secret here is that this is a song. It's a song lyric, and that's why we have to keep it exactly how it was. Okay, so he makes a bad face. Go ahead.
Il fait un regard noir.
Show her. You know what it means in English. Now we're gonna say he.
James.
Where's that?
James fait un regard noir.
Okay, now we can circle it. So we're going to use the first thing. She's going to get you to say yes. Does he make?
Est-ce que James fait un regard noir?
Oui.
Okay. Does
Suzanne fait un regard noir?
No.
Okay. Does James or does Susan?
James ou Suzanne fait un regard regard noir.
James.
Okay. She doesn't make a bad face. He makes a bad face.
Suzanne ne fait pas de regard noir. James fait un regard noir.
Wait.
What's the choice? Suzanne or James? What's your choices? Either or.
Oh, we were stating the negative. Sorry, right?
Okay,
She doesn't. Elle ne fait pas de regard noir. James fait un regard
So
noir.
a statement is followed by. Oh. Okay, so she said that 5 times. How many more times do you need to say it before hear it before you can say it? Let's find out. Someone over here. How do you say makes a bad face in French? Go on, try. Not repeating, just saying it. Nothing. You don't count. If it was on the board, you'd be reading it. Reading and sounding things out is not the same thing as what is the word. So feel that like 5 times in, no, but maybe 100 times in. So let's not slow her down and let her keep going. So there are other things she can do is instead of comparing 2 people, she can say he makes a bad face or he is happy. You can compare more than one person. You can do lots of different comparisons to get those either or. You're just trying to get the repetition. Can you feel that the comprehensible input is what leads to language acquisition? And these techniques are only to give you enough to think about so that language keeps coming out of your mouth. If your classroom is not comprehensible and mostly in the target language, you're not giving them enough input. Okay, question, go ahead.
I have a question. When she shows the word, it's supposed to be in English or in the target language?
Go.
Okay, but it always have to be represented in words because for me, I need visuals like all the time.
You can add visuals to it, but don't remove the English.
No, I mean with the word it will be what I need. You know what I mean?
Both.
Okay.
If you want to add a visual, great, but don't just do the visual. That's the difference with CPR storytelling is we don't waste time trying to make it comprehensible. We just make sure it's comprehensible. Translation is minimal in the language. It's very minimal, but it's always there. So what I do is I try and stay speaking in the target language all the time, and I don't go back into English because I have it up here. If someone doesn't know it, I can point to it, make sure that they've got it, but I don't have to go into English. It's like it breaks the spell. I don't like breaking the spell, but I still need to make sure they understand it. All right. So the person who just taught at your table, raise your hand. Point to the person you want to go next. All right, that person, stand up. You are teaching makes a bad face, however that works in your language. Makes a bad face. If you're in Spanish, you're teaching hace cara mala, even if that's not an expression you usually use, it's a song lyric. Okay? You are getting it, asking a question that gets a yes, a no, either or. You do not have to do them in order. You don't have to do them in order. You just have to give your class to say yes, no, either or.
Pedro.
Teach the word
Hace
first.
cara mala. Pedro hace cara mala. Pedro hace cara mala. Le voy a robar. ¿Qué cara hace Pedro? ¿Qué cara hace Pedro?
Teresa o Ramiro hace cara mala. Teresa. Okay. Jan o Ramiro hace cara mala.
No.
Ninguno. ¿Hago yo cara mala?
No. Sí.
Okay. ¿Hace Teresa cara mala?
Sí.
¿Hace Teresa o Ramiro cara mala? ¿Yo pongo la cara?
These do not have to be done in order. You can mix them up. Okay, stop please. That person who just went, point to someone else. You are going to add one question word. You can now add who. I want you to do what just was done, except add who. If any of you are talking about Pedro, stop. Don't talk about Pedro. Talk about someone at your table. That way you guys personalize and you have someone at your table who can do what you're asking them to. Alright? Someone at your table makes a bad face. Someone else doesn't. Who does? He does or she does? No, she doesn't, he does. See how you can get those questions in and you make your question word. But you only have 60 seconds for this turn. So pick somebody, stand up, go. Okay, stop please. Once you have asked questions and pre-taught the vocabulary, what comes next? What would you use here to ask PQA? Personalized question answers about any vocabulary here that needs more repetition. Pick something in there. What do you ask someone a question about? This is forced. Do you make bad faces? That's a silly personalized question and answer, right? But what can you pick out of there and say, oh yeah, I could start a discussion about this. Look at any of the vocabulary. Who is a boy, who is a girl? Is that an interesting personalized question? No. Who kisses? Now we've got escándalo. You just can't really get very far with who kisses on day 2. There's just not a whole lot of places you can go to. Escándalo. Escandalosa. Escandalosa. Okay, so what about is happy? Can you do is happy? You need to get that as a structure. What else are your structures? You're going to look in that box of TPRS and PQA. What could you ask questions about? Somebody give me an idea. Who throws cats? Look. And that's TPR. We're trying to use the more difficult ones. Yano. Huh? Oh, who is a good boy? Who is a good girl? Okay. What about Yano? Isn't anymore. Who's a good boy? Who isn't a good boy anymore? Who's a bad boy? Who isn't a bad boy anymore? Who's a good girl? Who isn't a... Oh, don't go there.
Yeah.
Okay, other possibilities. Questions you can ask your class that'll give you more vocabulary and give you an interesting conversation.
Who do you want to take on a date?
That's not in the story, so I don't have the words. But I'm gonna be here later and we'll go out and talk about it. What else?
La muchacha llora.
¿Quién llora?
¿Quién llora?
Look at your category of TPRS words. TPRS words. Look at the storytelling category that you wrote down. Those are your choices for, wow, I need more time on this vocabulary. Who has what? You can then do any cognate. Who has what? Who has any cognate? Who has? A phone. Sure. I saw Linda Lee, our Mandarin teacher, have an hour-long conversation with her class once about who had the iPhone 6 and who had the iPhone 7. And she ended up making up an iPhone 7 Plus Plus Plus, which is like the brand new iPhone. Nobody has it. She's the only one who has it. All right, so who has some kind of phone? Is anyone playing Pokemon Go? Good. You'll have much more free time. I'll bet your students are though. So if you know anything about those Pokemon Go and they're into it, then you can say who has, oh, see, there are some people nodding. Sure, yeah. You like read it on, in a book, right? So you can talk about things that they're talking about, but you can use has. All right. So who has what? You have an idea? You don't want to get up and talk about nothing. The last person to go, pick the next person to go. PQA is asking questions, but staying on the target word. Who has plenty of options? All right. But you only have 1 minute. Pick the next person. Have to stand up. Who has what? One place to start is who has a problem.
Tiene que ser complex. ¿Qué vas a usar? ¿Quién tiene el radio? ¿Quién tiene el televisor? ¿Quién tiene el teléfono? ¿Quién tiene hambre? Complex son las palabras que son
Ana tiene un gato. Vanessa. Teresa tiene un gato. No. Yo tengo un gato en clase. Yo tengo un gato. No. ¿Quién tiene un gato? Yo no tengo un gato. Okay. Teresa. John tiene un gato o tiene un perro. I just time because I'm finding out. Ricky 有色的笔，谁有红色的笔？没有红色的笔。
They want to see if they can pick it up.
Okay, stop please. Those of you who are standing up, tell me what kinds of questions did you ask? Hold on. Tell me a question you asked. What'd you ask? Hold on, let's share them all. Who has what? Good. Who has a cell phone? Who else? Who has a computer?
Who has chocolate?
Who has chocolate?
Who has a red pen?
Who has a red pen? That was it, okay? Who has an iPhone? Good. You know what I like about all these answers? No one really went outside of the vocabulary that they already had. And sheltering your vocabulary so you don't overwhelm them on day 1, day 2 is really important. So go back to how you felt in that Spanish class or in that Chinese class at the beginning and think about, wow, that was kind of a lot, right? You want to make sure that your students feel comfortable at the level of the effective filter is low, so they don't have any anxiety about it. Okay. After we've made sure that they know all the vocabulary, and those are the steps. We start with TPR, we teach the TPR words. We do storytelling PQA, circling on the vocabulary, and then we bring our actors up. All right? We bring our actors up and tell me what you saw when you saw the actors come up. Okay, engagement. So what happened to we? Or Stacy? I saw we today. So you have your actor come up. Would you come up and just so you can stand here? You have your actor come up, and do you just walk through the story and tell the story? Yes or no? No. So I need to make sure that I've taught all of these vocabulary words. So I'm going to start talking about the what? The muchacho, right? Because I need to teach boy. All right? So I started talking about the boy. So is this a good boy or is it a bad boy? He says he's a good boy. Well, I can't say says yet. He's a good boy or he's a bad boy? He's a bad boy? He's not a bad boy. He's a good boy. Ramiro is a boy. That's what I'm teaching. When I get to the story, let me say this again. By the time you get to the story, they know all the words. You've done PQA, you've circled, you've asked questions, you get them up here, and now I'm going to circle again. There is a good boy. I have an angel prop that I use and put it on his head, so good, yeah. They're all nodding. Yeah, we like the good boy. We have a good boy, and I have devil horns and a devil tail, but whatever you want to use that'll make it so that you can distinguish them. Props are a great way to make things comprehensible. So we've got that good boy, and every time I say his name, you're going to put the halo over your head. Ready? The good boy. I say Ramiro, the good boy. Ramiro, the good boy. Ramiro is a good boy or a bad boy? Good boy. Is he a bad boy? No, he's not a bad boy. He's a good boy. Who is a bad boy? Who is, right there, you're pointing at him. Why? He's a bad boy. Okay, now, the story's happening behind me. He's my prop. And you're a bad boy or a good boy? What's your name? Saul. Look at him. He's making a bad face. Saul is a, you were in the Chinese story. Saul is a bad boy or a good boy? He's a bad boy. He's a bad boy. Raul is a bad boy or a good boy? Bad. Ramiro, class, Ramiro, come on. Ramiro is a good boy or a bad boy? Good boy. Who is a good boy? Ramiro. Who is a bad boy? Saul. Saul is a bad boy? Yes. Saul is a bad boy. Is Ramiro a bad boy? No. Ramiro is a bad boy? No. Ramiro is not a bad boy. Ramiro is a good boy. Saul is a bad boy. Do you see what I'm doing? This is where we make sure that they've really got the vocabulary and they're understanding what's happening in the story, right? Okay, so Saul, is he going to run or walk? He's running. Why is he going to run? Because we only have one word. We only have run. We don't have walk. And I'm going to keep my story inside the vocabulary that they know, okay? So Saul runs. Now, what can I say? Can I make him run slowly? Nope, I can't. Oh. Keep inside the vocabulary that they know so that nothing becomes incomprehensible. We call that staying in bounds. If you stay in bounds as you're telling your Saul, come on, corre. If you stay in bounds, it's comprehensible the whole time. So then we act out the story. Saul runs. Saul runs. Oh, secretly. He runs secretly. He doesn't run fast. He runs secretly. Stop. I'm going to circle this. He runs secretly or he runs fast? Secretly. Who runs secretly? Saul. Saul runs secretly or Ramiro? Ramiro. Saul. Class, I said Ramiro. Ramiro runs fast. Who runs fast? Saul runs fast. Everywhere you get to a place in the story with vocabulary that needs circling, you're going to keep doing this. You're going to add question words a little bit at a time so that you can say who runs, why does he run, when does he run, how fast does he run. but I add my question words one at a time. At my upper levels, am I using all my question words? Am I using all my questions by the end of the second month of level 1? Yes. You just have to add them one at a time. One at a time. I spent a whole year once just teaching how to say almost so that I could teach how many. How many times did he run? And they would say 3 times. And I'd say, no, 3.5. How many? How much money did he have? $1 million. No, he had $1 million and 4 cents. So I just kept going almost to be able to add numbers. You can milk those question words and really get a lot more details in your story. Okay? Saul, come on. Saul runs secretly. He runs secretly where? Where does he run? He runs to Walmart.
For the girl.
To Walmart. Ramiro's a girl? Ramiro is a girl or Ramiro is a boy? Ramiro is a good boy or is a bad boy?
Good.
Saul is a boy or Saul is a girl?
Boy.
Saul is a boy. Saul is a boy who runs
Secret.
quickly. Saul is a boy who runs in circles. Oh, well, maybe. Do you run in circles? Saul, do you run in circles or do you run in secretly? Secretly. Okay, did I just ask him to say I run in secretly, I do not run in circles? No, but I'm going to say that. No, he doesn't run in circles, he runs secretly. Come here. Where does he run?
A target.
To Target. No, he does not run to Target. He runs secretly to
Walmart.
Ramiro.
Oh, Ramiro. Okay.
Ramiro. Okay, this is me setting up a story. Is this the same story that you see written here? No, I don't want to act out that story till the very end. Once I act out that story, the actual story that's on there, I'm still not going to do it completely exactly the same way, but I'm going to make sure that I get all the vocabulary words in there. Yes?
You saved the story for class.
Yeah, because I want them to be able to see this. It's a song, it's not a story. So by the time they have they seen this yet? No, why not? It's the third step, right? So this is step what? What step is this? This is step 2. Okay, you guys can sit down. You saw the story acted out yesterday in both of your classes, right? You saw the story acted out. When the actors came up, that's when we start asking questions to make sure all the vocabulary is taught. It's not the exact same story. Are we ready to read now, step 3? This has to be 98 to 100% comprehensible. I prefer 100% comprehensible by the time we get to it. So if I've taught all the vocabulary, if I've acted out little stories like that one, then we're ready to read. This little story was a lot easier because it had about maybe a quarter as many words. So we can read, just not to the main story yet. That's how you backward plan. Figure out where you want to end up. Make sure that by the time they look at it for the first time, it's 100% comprehensible. Do you understand the mission? To make sure that it's 100% comprehensible. Who believes secretly that if you give them a difficult reading and make them figure it out, that is good for them? Secretly? Hard work, homework, use a dictionary. Yes? Good! No one's going to admit to it. If they're working hard at it, is it pleasurable? Pleasure is the path to language acquisition, and comprehensibility makes it pleasurable. Think about the books that you read at home. When you're reading at night, what are you reading? What are you reading? BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed, is it comprehensible? Yeah? What do you read at home at night? Before you fall asleep, what do you read? What? What are you reading? What do you say? La Biblia. Do you understand it? Do you sometimes have to look up words and make sure that you know what they mean? Are you reading it in Spanish or in English? It's a bilingual edition? Oh, have fun. Yeah.
It's a good example. I've got a son who's going into 11th grade. His summer reading is The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
He's been stuck on the first page for 2 weeks because there's 10 words on the first page. does not know.
How old is he?
He's 16. He's got a lot of learning differences. But
Okay, the second session that I'm doing is on reading, how to teach reading, which is why I'm going to skip over this part because that's my next session. But, yes, it's called embedded reading. We need to get to embedded reading. I want to make sure that I get to the end of this so that you have all the steps for backward planning, and then I'll show you what else I backward plan from. Darcy asked me not to show this because this is what she's using in movie talk, but I didn't realize that if I don't, I can't get to the end of my presentation. So, Darcy's going to show you what she would do with this video. I'm just going to show you what the video is. Okay? She's right there, she can hear me. She's standing right over there. I'm going to get in trouble. I can't get in. I'll let you do the techniques. Okay, Darcy has a session at the end of the day on movie talk. She's amazing. But, what?
Okay, I'm gonna find a new video.
Okay, so this video right here is the main story, the first chapter story by Blaine Ray. Blaine Ray is the inventor of TPR storytelling. Then there was this teacher who wrote a song to go with it. So what I want you to do is just narrate. Just tell me what happened in the story. Don't look at your reading. What's happening? Who is that? That's Koki. No, that's Koki. Koki has what? What does Koki have?
Oh, okay.
As I'm doing this, I'm still asking questions, all right? I'm still asking questions. Koki has a cat. I'm asking questions in my target language, okay? Koki has a cat. Koki has a little cat, or Koki has a big cat? In Spanish, gato means cat. What's gatito? Right. She has a gatito. She has a little cat. Okay? So I can go through this without any sound. Did you see her? Did you see her? Did you see the smile? She is happy or she is not happy? Koki is happy or not happy? She's happy. Why is she happy? She has a cat. Okay, if I were doing this in Spanish, Mandarin, who was in my Spanish class yesterday? Raise your hand. Okay? Bueno. La muchacha tiene, what's tiene? Has, new word. I would have had to circle this, use question and answer, ask lots of questions. ¿Tiene un gato o tiene chocolate? ¿Tiene chocolate? What's chocolate? No tiene chocolate, tiene un gato. ¿Está contenta? ¿Sí o no? Sí, está contenta. Okay, so when we get to the part, I'm just going to keep going through this story and asking questions, just like who's that? El muchacho hace cara mala. Okay, so I can use this as my movie talk, and that's what Darcy's going to be talking to you about in the in the last session, is how to go use video clips and ask questions. Never show the whole video. Let it develop a little bit at a time. We've acted out lots of stories. They know all the vocabulary. I might have acted out a story similar to this. I might not have. Oh, lo tiran el piso. So when we see this for the first time, the whole class goes, oh no, don't throw the cat. And you find out who all the cat lovers are. I'm not one of them. Throw the cat on the floor, I don't care. Go land on your feet. Oh no, what's she doing? What's she doing? Class, Spanish class, what's she doing? She llora. La muchacha llora. All right, so this man wrote a song that goes with the story, and this video was made by a kid. The kid put the Lego video together. It's on YouTube. It's been here for forever, and he's made several of them. So you can use it regardless of what language. You see how you can just play it? You don't need the sound. But the second time it goes through, it has its subtitles.
Tiene un gatito, es muchacha buena. Pedro mira al gatito y hace cara mala. Pedro corre a la chica y agarra el gato y lo tira en el piso. La muchacha llora. Mónica, mira muchacho, Mónica, tiene otro gato.
Look, everybody's looking like, oh, wow, I love this. This is what I would do before this lesson. And the reason I suggest this lesson at the beginning is it's so easy. Because you have, it's a winner because you've got that video and you know you're leading up to it. So you can ask the story, you can act out the story, you can use props, you can ask lots of questions. But then when you get to this, you know it's comprehensible. They've seen it all completely on a video and they've sung along with it, although it goes pretty fast. Now, are we ready to read? Yes. Once we're at that point, then we're ready to read. And as we read, it should be completely comprehensible. So do we translate? If they need it, yes. It's not forbidden, but you shouldn't have to, because at that point they should know it all. So that's what my second session is about how to teach reading. Now I want to show you how to do upper levels, all right? Are there questions about how to do the lesson plan from beginning to end before I show you all the different levels? Who feels like they could do this day one of level 1 in any language? Could you do this story so that you already know exactly what you're doing at the beginning of the year? Who feels like they could do it? Who feels like they don't have the tools to do it yet? Like, who feels like this is not appropriate for my class? Okay, what level do you teach? What? Say that again? What would you teach instead? Sure. So how I would do that is I would set up this story, and then because that was a goal to be able to say my name is, which I don't teach because I do it through PQA. So that's like as I'm talking every day with my class, I start to do that kind of conversational vocabulary naturally instead of making it into a lesson. It's just you need it, so it comes up, and it comes up all the time. So I'm sure you can think of other examples, like maybe how to, I don't know. But then in my stories, they start to talk to each other. So then the girl says to the boy, what is your name? He says, my name is Ramiro and I'm a bad boy. Oh no, my name is Saul and I'm a bad boy. So you get the first person, you get that kind of, does that make sense? So as I'm building those stories, think about this. Gossip and storytelling are most of what we communicate in our lives. So when you talk about real communication, is it real communication? What else do you talk about? When we look at a textbook and we say, here are all of the things that you may find in your room. There's a pencil, there's a table, there's a desk. Here are all the things you might find in a grocery store. Here's a tomato, here's an avocado. And is that natural? So what we're doing is focusing on this, and this is how I'd encourage you to start thinking about it. We focus first on the 100 highest frequency words in the language, and then the 200 highest frequency words in the language. Has, needs, goes, wants, because we want them to be able to circumlocute from the first day. From the very beginning, we want them to be able to start communicating like babies. That they're able to say, I want pencil, I want that, I need bathroom. They talk like Tarzan, but that's okay. It's communication a little bit at a time. We're still talking about level 1. At level 2, you're going to be saying things like, if you were to see a girl with a cat, would you grab the cat and throw it on the floor? Why would you grab someone else's cat and throw it on the floor? It doesn't matter what level you're talking about. You have content there that's already done, and you can work on the technique because you don't have the lesson plan. Does that make sense? Okay. I think you can get to all of it. I'm going to answer a question, and I want to make sure I get to the upper levels in Mandarin. Yes?
So what's the base or what's the target choice of your vocabulary? I mean, do you plan your plan
the name of the book is A Frequency Dictionary of Spanish, or A Frequency Dictionary of Mandarin, or A Frequency Dictionary of French, and it's by Mark Davies, D-A-V-I-E-S, Mark Davies. Okay, did I answer the question? Oh, sorry.
I think my question was clarified.
It was? Okay.
I think the question is, do you spiral those frequency words in with the cognates and the vocabulary, or do you just start immediately only teaching the frequency words?
I am always teaching high frequency vocabulary.
So you don't spiral in the other words yet?
I do, a little bit at a time. You mean like me llamo, like I call myself?
Like I got it.
As soon as I teach le dice, then I can start having them say things. As soon as I teach says, then I can start teaching them to say things. But I'm not going to start by teaching them to say, I'm very pleased to meet you. I'm going to start by having them say, don't grab my cat, because that's the vocabulary that they know. And then what's my name becomes one sentence that I would work into the vocabulary. I actually don't teach se llama. If you're a Spanish teacher, stop teaching se llama. Don't teach it. Start by teaching llama and teach it really, really well. Teach call the police. Teach call like Tarzan. Teach call Jane like Tarzan. Say call your mom. If you teach llama so well that they only think of it as call, when you teach me llamo, they will never again say me llamo es. Right? Which means I call myself is. That's why, because you're trying to teach it without making sure that they've got that meaning attached to llama. Okay, this is a story in Spanish. This is what I was telling you about. This is not the real story. This story is a simplified version. It's the same thing I did with Don Quixote. So if you're going to go all the way to the end, this very complicated story for upper level Spanish, this lesson's already completely done. It's wonderful. I did not do it. Espuma y nada más. This is a basic story that's much simpler. He didn't greet him as he entered. When I recognized him, I began to tremble, but he did not realize it. In that instant, he took off his gun. He said to me, "It's hot, shave me." That's the beginning, but that's not how the story starts. The story actually has a lot more background, a lot more narration, a lot more vocabulary. You remember the story? A lot more vocabulary. It reminds me a lot of Un Día de Estos by Garland Garcia Marquez. Oops, I'm spinning. So before the main story, before the really difficult real literature, you back it out to the same thing we did with every other story. Okay? Here are the TPR words in the poem Hombre Pequeñito. TPR words, these are the structures. Here are the cognates. And here are some other words. I put this into the category. My fourth category was words they already know. And then you teach the TPR words. You know this. Then you ask questions using the structures. You know this. This is exactly what you did with the first level. And then I started asking the story. Asking the story ended up being nothing like the poem. The poem is about a woman who's telling her husband, in the poem, she's telling her husband, you're keeping me in a cage, let me go. I'm a canary, let me fly away like a canary, you can't keep me captive. So the themes of it, I was able to talk a lot about machismo and who she was writing to and what her intention was, and there were some really upper level themes that we could have as a discussion. But first I had to teach the vocabulary. This is how my story turned out. But first I want to go to the, I thought it was here. here's the poem. So, here's the poem. Little man, let your canary go. She wants to fly. I am your canary, little man. Let me jump. I was in your cage, little man, little man. What a cage you give me. I tell you, little one, because you don't understand me. Nor will you ever understand me. Neither do I understand you, but even so, open the cage. I want to escape. Little man, I love you for a quarter of an hour. Don't ask me for more. It's a poem by Alfonsina Storni. All right, so my point with this Spuma y Nada Más is you have great literature. It's a short story, but you don't have a version, or you do have a version that's written that's easier. So you do that first, and before that, you do what? TPR storytelling, act out the story, and before that, you do PQA, asking questions, and before that, you pull out the TPR words. So with the story of Spuma y Nada Más, you do that. But this one didn't have one. So when I started asking questions, my story was pretty spontaneous. It was using all the vocabulary, but not wanting to tell the story of the poem until the end. I just wanted it to be comprehensible. So here's the, first I divided them out, TPR, Cognates, TPRS. And then this is what happened in class. This is the story that I ended up writing after what happened in class, which was, see if we can make it bigger screen. No, making it smaller. There was a bad woman. The bad woman did not know how to use Facebook, but she wanted to learn. The woman was named Caitlin. Caitlin was in my class. She had a plan. She wanted to capture a princess who knew how to use Facebook. Quería capturar una mujer que supiera usar Facebook. So I was, at that level, I was teaching imperfect subjunctive. Caitlin quería, okay, sorry, I forgot I was supposed to be speaking English. Caitlin wanted the princess would teach her to use Facebook, still imperfect subjunctive. While Caitlin had the princess in her tower, she could learn to use Facebook. She wanted to learn to use Facebook because she wanted to be normal. One person in my class didn't have Facebook, and it was really the abnormal thing. We made a lot of fun of her. So this story is how it turned out. So all you're doing is backward planning. I want to get here. This is too hard. So I'm going to do a story in class, but before that, I'm going to ask questions using the vocabulary, and before that, I'm going to take the words that are actionable, that are TPR words, and I'm going to teach those. Does this make sense? How long would this take? If you want to get to this poem, yeah, but it doesn't matter. You're in the target language all the time. One of the lesson plans that I do, that I backward plan from, is a quiz online on the 5 love languages. The 5 love languages in English, it's a book about, by Gary U. Chapman, but it's in Spanish, and the quiz is online in Spanish. So they can take the quiz in Spanish and figure out what their love language is. Do they like words of affirmation? Do they like physical touch? Do they like acts of service? If you want to get to that level of conversation, first you have to backward plan from that to make sure that they know all the vocabulary. This make sense? All right. So I want to show you something in Mandarin that I found. You can tell me if that's a good thing or not. If it's not, then don't worry about it. But you'll know where to start looking. Usable? It's a children's song, so I would use it the same way. I would backward plan from that music the same way that I do anything else. Is the song okay or good? Is it appropriate? Okay, what level? What level would it be appropriate for? IQ level? No. We think of our students in a number of years that they have contact time. So they're like 2, they're like 3, they're like 4. Yeah. For beginning level. Okay, so for beginning level, any children's song, if you go and you backward plan from the words, you have content. And when you find words that are not high frequency, Most of the time, I write them up, but I don't teach them. I make sure that they know what the word is, but you don't really need to know this word. Because I want to spend most of my time on the high frequency words. It's not worth it to teach those random words that showed up in a song but don't need to be there. For example, chica, muchacha, 2 words for girl, both very, very high frequency, but I wouldn't teach them on the same day. It's unnecessarily confusing. Okay, I want to give you a chance to think about the materials that you are using and ask questions about it. Our next session is on reading, so you can see how I got to show you where the reading was, but haven't done the reading, because that's the next session right after lunch. If you want to talk about reading strategies, how to teach reading, once you get to that reading part to make it comprehensible, that's what my next session is about. Okay, backward planning. With the people who are near you, come up with what you're teaching, something that you're teaching from that you have questions about. How would you teach? You all don't have textbooks, right? You do have some wonky lesson planning things, right? You have to turn in your lesson plans. You do have textbooks? Are you at this school? I just didn't know. Okay, so turn to the people next to you. Materials that you could use to start with right now that you would want a backward plan from.
This last step, right? Backward will be the story, right? You ask me to start. Story. So then, but you know how to teach that story, you backward for that, yeah, backward for that, and then, read the story, right? This is the song. This is a simpler story. And then this is your real story. Then you ask the story, right? Create a story, ask it. Then before that, you have a pillar, right? Set structure.
Okay, I want to end with this, and then we're going to take questions as long as it's just going to run out of time. This is not my presentation. You can find it online. His name is Marcos Benavides, and the name of the presentation is How Easy is Easy. I want you to read this. How does that feel? Can you follow it? You have a pretty good idea of what's going on? Okay, you with me? How comprehensible is that? This is 98% comprehensible. Can you follow it? This is what we're going for. That's what it feels like to be at 90% comprehensible. If you backward plan and you make it comprehensible, that's what reading feels like. This is 85%.
This is what?
85% comprehensible.
The point of the words that don't make sense is that the student reading Spanish sees something there that they don't understand.
How does that feel? The Mandarin teachers are like, are these words we're supposed to know? You don't get it at all. 85%, and you don't get it at all. Mandarin teachers, that means 15% of those words are made up. They don't exist, and that's what it feels like to read something that is 85% comprehensible. I want to challenge your belief, because it's somewhere inside of you, that it is okay to let our students work to read. Reading shouldn't be work. It should be easy. It should feel like, I pretty much have this. And if you backward plan, if you make sure that all that vocabulary is comprehensible, if you spend your time making sure that they really know those words before you get to them, this is our key. It has to be comprehensible and compelling input. If I asked you to read the rest of this book, would you want to? How many of you would voluntarily go home on your own time and read the rest of this book? So if you are asking your students to go home and read 85% comprehensible, or if you're telling them come into class and most of what I say is going to be comprehensible, most of it, like 15%, you won't understand. When you're in my class, what did I ask for? What level of comprehensibility did I ask for? I asked for 100%, and I asked you to show me on 10 fingers, show me 100%. I also, at the end of all of my classes, I give my students an index card, and they write down their percent comprehension. They write down their percent comprehension. I understood 90%, so that it's secret. I also have them close their eyes and show me what their level of comprehension is. I make sure from the very beginning that they understand I mean it. They're not going to walk out of class not knowing what happens. That's the commitment you're making when you're saying, I'm going to make it comprehensible, compelling, interesting input, but I'm also going to make sure that by the time you get to reading, reading is fun. Try that on. This is my next session. I'm moving into the next session. Try that on. What would happen if our students were so excited by reading that they wanted to read more on their own? The amount of contact time that you have in a school is not sufficient, but it becomes sufficient if they leave class and they want to read. They become readers. So your goal in teaching reading is to make them really want to become readers. You're talking about your son who's trying to read Great Gatsby. It's like this. And so if it's like this, let him watch the movie and then read the book and see if it becomes more comprehensible. So we always say, no, don't do that. Why are we trying to make the book work instead of make it fun? We don't want him to cheat. We want him to read.
Actually, I verified that this was not cheating.
Good.
I thought it was going to be cheating.
I'd also read it to him. Sit down and read the first chapter. Great Gatsby is fantastic. It's a great story. It's a great book, but it's not easy to start. It's not easy to get into. That's how I feel with The Little Prince, too. That book requires some, the vocabulary is difficult. Okay, do I have questions about your own curriculum? What you were teaching? Tell me about this lesson planning form you have to fill out. No, I was told that there was a lesson planning form. Not from that school. Who has to fill out a lesson plan before they teach? Like turn in lessons. Yes? Can you do this? Or are there parts of it that aren't going to work? I don't mean this. I mean, can you do? Say that again? Say that again?
Maybe that meaning might something like that.
So if when we're endpoints and go back to the beginning, then we should be able to divide it up into lessons. Okay? But the pieces that aren't going to work are the output pieces. We don't want them speaking at the beginning. We don't want them writing at the beginning. Yes?
So for your level 1 class, do you organize it by novels?
Yes, I do. I do all my level 1, level 2, level 3 classes are all novels. I backward plan for novels. That's what Darcy was talking about in the last section about how she gets the AP and she makes it sure that they're reading a lot. But at upper levels, I'm out of books. I'm into authentic literature. And so when we talk about we have to use authentic resources, sure we do. Eventually, once they speak language at a regular level, when you're talking about kindergartners, that's their level. Preschoolers, they don't need authentic literature as much as they need comprehensible literature. And then, in our upper levels, I'm doing espuma y nada más. And the 5 love languages is in Spanish, and it's content that really inspires conversation. I also do los 4 acuerdos, or the 4 agreements in Spanish, and they choose which we go through experientially with each one. You can really do anything once if you're willing to backward plan to it. You're doing Little Prince at level 3? Yeah, backward plan. Okay, questions, and it's time for lunch. Questions? If you come back, you go ahead and stop. If you come back at lunch, or after lunch, Dr. Krashen's going to speak during lunch, and after lunch, there you have 3 possibilities. Darcy's going to talk about movie talk, which is taking movie clips and doing the same techniques, TPR, storytelling, question and answer, moving through a movie plot, not showing a movie, but showing it in a few second at a time increments. That's movie talk. She's going to be doing that in room 103. Don't know where that is, but I have faith that it's somewhere down that hallway. And I'm going to be in here doing reading and how to do reading from novels. You have a novel that you're leaving with, and I'll show you how to teach from that. And then Jason's going to continue with culture in stories, still primarily directed at elementary. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Great.